Hi everybody, and thanks for viewing this YouTube fly tying tutorial. The pattern I'm tying for you today is known as the Hot Wire Prince Nymph. Think of a Prince Nymph meeting the Copper John. Two really great flies, and put them together, and this is kind of what you come up with. So for starters, I'm tying this on an Allen Fly Fishing W501BL hook. The BL means barbless. I'm tying it on a size 12 today, though I'll tie this as small as a 16 and as large as a size 8. I have a 2.4 millimeter gold tungsten bead, though I will vary the size and the color of that bead throughout this pattern. And finally, I have some lead wire, some .015, approximately 8 wraps. I placed that with a little gap in between the lead wire and the bead. I like to leave that gap there because we have some materials to tie off near the eye of the hook. Next, I'm just going to capture my tag end of my thread behind that lead wire, just making sure I have that lead wire locked in between my thread. I'm going to advance my 8/0 thread towards the back of the hook. I'm going to next tie in a little bit of a couple goose biots for my tail. I have some brown goose biots, relatively traditional color for this pattern. I'm going to trim 2 of them, and I'm going to tie them in separately. If you're a more advanced tyer, more than likely you will tie these in at the same time, but I know I have a lot of beginners watching these videos, so I'm going to tie them in one at a time so you can really see what's going on. I want to ensure that their length is just a little less than that of the actual body. And then whenever I tie them in, I also want to make sure that they're splaying away from the hook. So keep that in mind whenever you tie these tails in for this Prince Nymph. I'll show you what I mean here in a second after I get them both tied in. I've locked in one. Then I'm going to compare the other side with that one. Make sure that it's approximately the same length. Lock it in as well. Verify everything, and then completely lock in all the excess. Let me trim away their butts, and I'll show you what we have going on here. And by splaying away, this is what I mean. If you take a look at it from the top, you can see how the ends of those tips are going away from the hook. Next, I'm just going to kind of lock those in there. And I'm going to grab some ultra wire. I have 2 colors that I'm going to be tying in. One is black and one is hot yellow. I'm going to tie these in directly behind the lead wire, where that lead wire extended to. And the reason is because we really want to make sure that we have a nice transition of that body. We want it all approximately the same diameter leading up towards our thorax. So I bring these the whole way back into the tail, wrap forward, ensure that I have a nice smooth transition point. And you can see if I give you a 360, they really blend together well with that lead wire. You can see that there's the end of it right there, but that's really not going to impact us too much. And then I bring my thread forward and also build up just a little bit of a transition point coming off that lead wire. If you want to use 6/0 thread, a lot of guys recommend that because it's easier to build those points up. All right, next I want to talk about this lead wire. The original pattern that I've always tied of this Hot Wire Prince Nymph calls for 2 sizes of lead wire, of ultra wire. I'm tying the black in a size brassy, that's the BR at the top, and the hot yellow is size small. I really prefer to tie this with contrasting colors, a dark and a light color. And I prefer the light color being the smaller of the 2 to make it more like a ribbing look. I'm just going to start advancing these forward. And as I do, I really want to make sure that I keep that black color on the far left. I have no really great rationale as to why I do that, but it's just something I attempt to do as I'm wrapping these forward. Okay, and as I get to my lead wire, I stop right there. That black just broke off. I'm going to helicopter this hot yellow off. Okay, and next we're going to tie in our thorax. For the thorax, we're going to use some really nice peacock close to the eye of the peacock. Here's the eye. I'm just going to go down, and there's some really nice peacock off of this feather. I pull off 2, line them up by their tips, and trim their tips to make sure they're the same length. I'm going to tie them in by their tips. And I really want to ensure that I have a very strong thorax. I want that thorax to be seen on this Hot Wire Prince Nymph. So don't be afraid to really build up this part of the fly. Bring it forward up into the near the head. Tie off. I'm going to make a couple wraps to tie off. And once I do that, I'm also going to just wind back through this peacock to ensure that it's really locked in place and that it's not going to go anywhere. All right, next time I grab some hackle for the legs. I'm going to be using some hen hackle. This is a really pretty hen hackle that I have. This is from Clearwater Hackle. To prep this, I'm just going to grab it by the tips, stroke some of the other fibers down. I'll show you what it looks like. I'm going to tie that tip in right in the middle of all this stuff. Actually, I want to make sure I tied it on my side. When I tie it in, I'm actually going to trim that the tip away. Push those fibers back just a hair. Then I grab it with a little material clip. This is a Stonfo material clip. I really like this. It's an Italian-based company. It really just has a great looking clip that just seems to grasp this stuff really well. And I'm going to make a couple wraps. As I make each wrap, I'm going to keep stroking these fibers towards the back. There's one. Keep stroking them back. Here's my second. As I bring that around, I'm just going to hold it towards me. Just wrap my thread through, winding it back and forth to make sure I don't capture any of those pieces of hackle or individual fibers. Make one wrap in front, then I take my scissors and trim it as close as possible. Now you can see how those fibers are really splaying out. That looks good, however, I want them a little closer to that thorax. So I'm actually going to take my fingers, push them down, and make a couple wraps back. You can see that by doing that just a little bit, they really do seem to just gravitate a little bit more towards the body. That's what we want. We want that peacock pushing them away from that body as this fly is going through the water. All right, to finish this off, we're going to add some white goose biots coming off the top to represent almost wings on this pattern. Don't be afraid to really look through your white goose biots and make sure you have some relatively thick pieces. That's what I like to look for whenever I'm tying these in. So I want to grab a couple really thick pieces out. There's a couple different ways to tie these in. Again, I'll tie them in one at a time. You can crisscross them or put them individually. I might crisscross them, so I'm basically going to put one going back, and I'll show you what I mean by crisscross here in a second. It's not going to go the whole way back, but it's going to go a portion of the way. And by crisscross, I mean it's going back, and the butt end is coming on the opposite side of the eye. Now I tied that one just a little long, so I'm just going to pull it forward just a hair. Actually, I don't like the way I tied that one in. Okay, that is better. I tie in the opposite side. Same thing, just crisscross it the other way. Once I have those crisscrossed, then I'm just going to lock them in place. Cut away the butt ends. You can see that there will be a little bit of white excess that's remaining. Just take your thread, wrap it approximately a dozen times or so. You can build up that head a little bit. That'll push those butt ends underneath that bead. At that point, I'm going to put in just a single half hitch. Inspect the fly. Make sure it's the way I really like it. In this case, it is. I do feel like I have a few too many hen hackle fibers from that JV hen. So I think I might get rid of some of those, but I'm going to first finish off the pattern because I can have this locked in place. Let me just give it a quick whip finish. Give it one more, just a couple more. I'm going to provide some head cement for this. Before I do that, I'm just going to go through and figure out which one of these I'd like to pick off. And I'm just going to be taking a couple, just pull them off with my fingers because these really just come right off that that hackle pretty easily. Once I get a few of those picked away, it looks a lot better. I really don't like an excessive amount of fibers on my nymphs. I get a couple more. I think that looks a lot better. Okay. And the last one. Maybe. All right, I may have to clean up that one after this video is done. All right, finally, I'm going to apply some head cement. You want to ensure that you keep this head cement away from the eye of the hook, so I'm just going to place it just on that thread collar. Apply it in a 360 fashion, and there is our finished Hot Wire Prince Nymph. I'll give you a nice 360 of this pattern. Really, there's a couple areas that I like to stress, and that's try to keep that body really nice and thin with that ultra wire. Keep your peacock just as thick as possible. Get some really high quality peacock in there. And then whenever you go through hen hackle, don't be afraid to vary the colors of it. I have a video on hen hackle. I'll put a little link up to it right now because there's so many different color combinations and lengths that you can use. So I'll finish this video off and I'll show you a couple other patterns that I've tied in the same color but with different types of hen hackle, and then I'll give a couple of thank yous and shout outs. Okay, here's a look at another Hot Wire Prince Nymph. This one has a little bit shorter hen hackle. Again, it's dark hen hackle from Clearwater Hackle, but it's a little bit shorter, a little bit darker, and just gives a different profile. So there's a couple little things that you can do to vary this Hot Wire Prince Nymph. Again, to reiterate some of those possible modifications, you can change the color of the tail, those goose biots, the white goose biots on top. I have black and hot yellow for the ultra wire, though you can really just experiment out the wazoo. I've seen so many combinations, including chartreuse and pink and blues and really dark olives. So the sky is truly the limit based on what you're trying to imitate or what type of flash or what type of contrast you're going for. One of my key points or essential points is to use real peacock and really build up that thorax. So it really just gives a strong thorax in there and a strong profile. You can also vary that hen hackle at the front. If you finally want to just play around with that tungsten bead and get a couple different colors, you can to kind of create like a hot spot. Or you can always just take some Glow Bright yarn if you have any, and after you finish the head, just add that on as a hot spot at the front. I'm not going to do that for this pattern, but that's something that you can do without a doubt if you'd like to do that. With that said, I'd like to thank Allen Fly Fishing for the use of their W501BL nymph and wet fly hook. You can check that out at allenflyfishing.com. Also, thanks go out to Clearwater Hackle for the use of their JV hen hackle. That's some great stuff, and I highly encourage you to look into it. And thanks to all of you for viewing this YouTube fly tying video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them directly on this page, or you can email me at tcammisa@gmail.com. Thanks everybody for viewing this tutorial of the Hot Wire Prince Nymph.